Here we go. Right, welcome everyone to a very super special Heresy Hammer Tactical episode. Games Workshop were very kind enough to throw us all a huge bone this week by giving us a free download rules for the new uh, Solar Auxilia Heavy Sentinel. So we
I
thought,
I asked the
we,
question to Lee, actually. I'm just sorry to interrupt. I asked a question to Lee, which is that is this the only or is this the second model that we've had that's new with new rules?
what's the first?
The Kratos.
Kratos?
Yeah. So there are a few exceptions. The exceptions being special characters. But I
Okay.
think this is the only new model we've had, or the second model that we've had with in plastic or whatever with rules. Isn't that interesting?
That
I
is
think,
very interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Outside of characters. Yeah, no, I like it.
yeah.
That's good. Anyway, we thought we would reciprocate that bone by recording a bonus tactical episode on the new Heavy Sentinel, which we're going to release obviously on the main feed and for free on the Patreon as well. So this is normally what we would do in our spare time for our wonderful patrons over on Patreon, but we thought we would jam this sucker in as it goes for pre-order in the morning. You may even be watching this and it might already be up for pre-order. It might already be sold out. Who knows? It might be temporarily out of stock online, Rob.
I think it's more than likely that it's going to be temporarily out of stock online from 10 past 10 tomorrow, I
What
suspect.
are the chances? Hopefully, your friendly local game store will be able to have secured you a copy already. I
Absolutely.
know that I've tapped up a few people for a box, so
Yeah.
we shall see. So yes, we're going to talk to you about the Solar Auxilia Aethon Heavy Sentinel. We chatted about this on the main show when this was kind of teased. And I said that I wasn't a huge fan of it to start off with, but it has grown on me enormously, like a huge wart. Are you still a fan of the mini itself, Rob?
Yeah, I like it. And I think once we start seeing it in the wild with different paint jobs, I think that I will like it even more. But I'm a big fan. And I think that these are roaming around in squads of three. We'll talk about it in a moment, but squads of three, I think are just going to look quite sexy.
Oh, I agree. I think walkers are always cool. I
Yeah.
think, and especially this kind of like steampunky style, I think
Yeah.
works really, really well for Solo Auxilia. So, yes, I am completely and utterly rowing back on my original skepticism about the model, and I am putting this firmly in the very good category.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
So the big question is, are the rules any good? Or, much like the model, are we going to be initially skeptical about the rules? Maybe they'll grow on us a little bit as we go through.
Mm.
Let us all journey together. So, would you like to kick us off, Rob, by talking to us about the Aethon Heavy Sentinel?
Yeah. So this feels a interest. First of all, I'm going to talk about the slot.
Yes.
And we should probably, and as we talk about this slot, we're going to unpack a number of things. Because remember, this is a Tactica show. Although we've talked about it being looking cool, this is obviously focusing on the rules. So I had hoped that this would fill an elite slot, or it
Oh, you and me both.
might fill a fast attack. I thought it was more likely it would fill an elite than a fast attack. The reason I'm bringing this up now is
Mhm.
because Solar Auxilia have lots of good options in the heavy support. However, they only have three heavy supports. So you're going to, if you want to take these, and bear in mind you can only take three in a unit, you are going to have to use up a precious heavy support squad.
So precious.
Now me
Like,
and
cannot
yeah,
underestimate how precious that heavy support slot is.
Now, me and John, in our kind of three previous Tactica episodes that are on Patreon, we went through on just some of the heavy sports. So we went through the Lehman Russ, we went through the Malcadors, we went through the
Artillery squadron.
artillery
Oh,
squadrons as
yeah.
well. We didn't even touch upon, the Valdors and things like that. Um, and it's such a vital slot, I think, for the Solar Auxilia because it's where obviously the main punch of your force is going to come from, which allows it to compete with other lists. So I think that in the context of that and in the wider context of that, we've got to look at that through the lens. You know, we've got to look through that lens at these rules. So we've always got to compare, and I think Solar Orcs players needs to always be saying, is it better to get 3 Lehman Russ or 3 Solar Auxilia Aethons? Is it better to take a Malcador over this, etc., etc.? And I think that you're going to be forced to make those comparisons all the time when list building, because there are other really, really good options in the heavy slots. And what makes it even more difficult, I think, for Solar Orcs players is that now everything's coming in plastic, or there are lots of options in plastic. So it's not like you go, oh, okay, well, these things are cheaper because they're in plastic in comparison to resin Malcadors. That's not a thing any longer. So I think that players are going to really need to think carefully about the makeup of their force and think whether these are worth it. I think so. We got to, everything we say today is through that lens, which is that you have very, very, very few slots to play around with.
Yeah, I completely concur. I was kind of thinking that these would be a case of in the elite slot, if you wanted something that was a bit sort of tougher and a bit more survival, packed a bit more punch, but wasn't necessarily Ogryns, you'd probably take these or Ogryns. But no, you can take both. But would you?
Yeah,
and I think that's good.
What it comes down to.
We're going to circle back to that point sort of towards the end, but we're going to start off by actually looking at it in isolation. So it's got an interesting stat line for the SA, which we'll come to in a second. For starters, it's movement 7, so it's not dreadnought fast, but it's not human peon slow. It's weapon skill, ballistic skill 3, which is obviously going to be a little bit of a letdown, but also not surprising in the context of what else we've seen so far from basic pre-post humans. I think where it gets interesting is its toughness or strength and toughness of 6, which is really, really good.
A toughness 6 is wild. That is absolutely wild. Yeah, it's brilliant. Really, really
5 wounds, initiative 3, although it's pretty likely to get into combat very often. I think the thing that does make it particularly interesting is its 2-up save. Now, which is very rare. In fact, I think it's actually unheard of in the book to actually get a 2-up save.
Yeah, very rare, except for your
Legate Marshal.
Yeah, Legate Marshal. So I think just a couple of things just to draw out on this. So you are going to have to, if you're, let's look at it from the point of view of a Marine player, you are going to have to bring even one of these down, you are going to have a squad of, say, 10 las cannons. Like, it's not got an invulnerable save. And I don't think there's probably anything can stop it from, say, shrouding. But it's got 5 wounds and it's a 2-up save as well, you know, and it's not going to be doubled out by, say, like a las cannon. So it's going to take a lot to bring this down. Where I think, though, you know, where I think it is susceptible, like with all things, is obviously just weight of fire from, say, like a Volkite squad, which is obviously is going to wound on 4s, and then you're just reliant on your 2-up save. You know, if you think, but even then, you're going to have to fail 5 2-up saves to lose one of them. Yeah. So they are, I think, really survivable, unusual in the context of the Solar Auxilia list, exactly as you said. Yeah, and I think that there's going to require a lot of dedicated fire to bring each one of these down.
Yeah, I think as well, you know, it's going to be susceptible to things like Demolisher Cannons and the Dreadhammer from the Typhon.
Yeah.
Potentially, because that's going to be doubling it out. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's really useful. And because they are obviously squadrons as well, they're going to have a not inconsiderate amount of potential return fire. So yeah, I completely concur. I think as a stat line at 70 points, I think we're all right. I think we're onto something here.
I actually think for 70 points, it's really well balanced.
I agree. It is balanced. I think that's a very, very good point. Now
it is. Well, the only thing I'll say is that not only, so just circling back on the initiative 3, so it is heavy. So any movement reaction it's going to do is only going to be 2 inches because of the fact it's heavy. So it's not going to move places quick at all. If you're hoping to bully tactical squads, you know, on objectives further up the board, that's all very well. But it's going to take you 2 or 3 turns to get there. Think about a Leviathan Dreadnought, you know, it's only 1 inch quicker than Leviathan, and because it's heavy, it cannot run. You know, that's the other thing to consider as well.
Yeah. So it's a cavalry. So Rob talked a bit about it there being heavy. It's also a cavalry unit, which is quite nice because it means that it can't be pinned. It is heavy, so yes, it is going to be slow, but it is going to, re-roll its saves against blast. So if you do get caught by that Typhon, you are going to be, unless of course it's rendered you,
Yeah.
then you are going to be getting your 2-up re-rollable save against it, which is quite nice to see. So
And
it
that's
is,
really nice. Yeah. If you just fail one of the non-rends, it's just like, oh, I've got another chance, and you're likely to make that. So really,
yep.
really useful.
And it's mechanized, so they've nicely included the mechanized unit subtype on the page, even though it is available in the book, and also you see mechanized on some of the mechanicum units as well, like knights and the like. So let's quickly run through the mechanized unit subtype because it does throw up a couple of interesting things. So successful wounds caused by attacks with poison or fleshbane must be re-rolled against models with the mechanized unit subtype. So
Yep. So
obvious.
similar to a contemptor. So
Yep.
yeah, this is like it's basically a solar auxiliary contemptor, isn't it? Equivalent.
Yep.
Yeah.
And failed to wound rolls made failed to wound rolls made of weapons with armor bane must re-roll.
Yeah.
So makes sense.
We know that one. Yeah.
We know that one. A model with a mechanized unit subtype may attack with all of its weapons it has when making a shooting attack, including as part of reactions. And worth bearing that in mind when we talk about some of the weapons.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a model with a mechanized unit subtype may attack with heavy and ordnance weapons whilst counting stationary, even if it has moved in the preceding movement phase. And it may declare charges as normal, regardless of any shooting attack made in the same turn.
Yeah, that's great. That's really useful for its weapons. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, charge them into combat though, probably doing this wrong, but you never know.
Yeah.
You might need to.
Yeah.
And a model with a mechanized unit subtype is affected by haywire, detonation, and battlesmith special rules as if it had the dreadnought unit type.
Yeah.
You're able to hear, by the way, there's an enormous hailstorm going on like this.
So this is, I think, haywire. Graph haywire
Yep.
is gonna be super vulnerable because you've got no invuln to save that haywire against you, and you can't use your 2-up save.
No.
So Grav will just nuke these guys into oblivion. So
as will the dangerous terrain that it leaves in its wake as well. So it's going to be another problem with it as well because of its low initiative and heavy.
Yeah.
And last, no model that does not have the mechanized unit subtype may join a unit that includes one or more models with a mechanized unit subtype. Makes sense. Fine. These guys are going to be chickens together or chickens on their own, but no one can join the chickens. So very cool. Now, one thing that we were a little bit not annoyed by necessarily, but we really wanted to see these in squadrons of 5, didn't we? Let's be honest.
Yeah. This comes back to the heavy supports, which is that you can only take an additional 2. Now, every additional one is 65 points, not 70. So you're saving yourself 10 points if you buy another 2. But I think the issue is that because you can only take an additional 2, it means that you'll only maths 3 in a unit, and then that's the point you have to go, oh, is it worth using that heavy slot for the firepower, which isn't a huge amount of firepower that he's going to be dishing out. And that's the equation you're going to have to make. And I think it's a really tough one. I think if you've got a spare heavy support slot, I think it's going to be a no-brainer to take some of these because they're relatively cheap. But I think that if you are somebody who is a complete treadhead or, can't for some reason move their artillery units into the elites units, we'll come to that in a bit, then I think this is going to be a tough call whether or not to take them.
Yeah, and we did talk about the dichotomy of maybe wanting to include quite a lot of vehicles as a point soak in the other tactical shows over on the Patreon where we were kind of discussing kind of various list building ideas and just maybe wanting to get away from fielding loads of infantry. Another kind of caveat that we want to mention as well is something we talked about quite a lot in reference to solar is that it's very easy to, I think, view a lot of the units in the solar list through the lens of either playing against the Astartes or playing with the Astartes against the solar list. Whereas actually, I think what we will see is a bigger human on human meta develop. Now we've got access to some new and exciting model ranges that's also a lot cheaper. Like the barrier to entry for solar auxiliaries being so nerfed by the release of the new plastic kit. So I think we also want to keep a watching brief on how are these guys perform against Astartes and how they're going to stand up to Astartes, but also how are these guys going to perform against other solar auxiliary or militia armies.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so Weapon options. We've got some good options, I think, here. I think this is also, I think, where again, when we've looked at some other units, there's some standouts and then some stuff you're just not going to take. I think this has got play across the board largely, to be honest with you.
Yep.
So it comes a standard with a multi-laser, which is rubbish. If
You're
I'm
not
being
going to
honest
take that. Don't take that. That's not a
no,
good choice.
no, and the Aethon missile battery. So worth bearing in mind, you're going to have to invest some points in another main weapon. So that is going to start to bump up the points cost. So you can have an autocannon for 10 points. You know my thoughts on autocannons. I love them. I love them. But am I going to be wanting to shoot one at BS3? Maybe not. Volkite Culverin for 10 points. Not a terrible choice either if you need some sort of mid strength, like kind of anti infantry or anti kind of medium armor.
Yeah, I think that when I'm just going to hop across to the Aethon missile battery actually because that is basically designed for killing infantry. So if you are thinking actually these are going to be a good anti-infantry, a Volkite Culverin is a good option. You know, it's strength 6. It is AP5, so it's not going straight through most solar armor, but it is doubling out. You know, solar auxiliary wouldn't get a feel no pain, for example, against if they've got a medic in the unit against the Volkite Culverin.
No.
And the other one is the Volkite Culverin is 45-inch range.
Yep.
So it gets around the fact that these are super slow. Is it a good investment for 80 points for a Volkite Culverin and a missile battery? I think probably jury's out really, but yeah. Anyway, but there are other options, aren't there?
There are, yeah. So you can take a las cannon. I think the fact of the matter is a single las cannon for 20 points, which is going to be hitting 50% of the time, maybe even, if you're fighting in the night, bearing in mind that you can't buff it, you might want to reconsider that possibly.
Yep. And then the other comparison is that if you look at a speeder, which I would say, sort of almost equivalent in stats, T6 or whatever, 4 wins and that, it costs for 2 las cannons on a speeder, it is 5 points for 2 las cannons, 2.5 points. And then this is costing you 20 points. So I just it is so difficult that when you start comparing against the legions list, these are wildly imbalanced, I think.
We'll come on to that.
Yeah.
You've got the heavy incinerator, which is one of the new weapons. So again, if you're maybe thinking about kind of close quarters anti-infantry, especially anti-human infantry, I think this should be high on your list. So reasons being, we jump across to the other side. The heavy incinerator is flamer template, strength 6 AP4. So it's going straight through that void armor, doubling people out. No feel, no pains, no nothing, and it's also torrent 6 inches as well. So it's got that slightly bigger effective threat range.
Yeah.
So you've got an effective threat range on it. What's that? Is it 6 inches?
It's 6 inches, yeah. So 12-inch range. Yeah.
So you've got 19-inch effective threat range with its movement. So
yeah.
Which is not to be sniffed at.
No, that's actually, when you put it like that, actually, that's actually pretty good. And if you also consider that, in the previous shows that we've done, we've talked a lot about fortifications and having Aegis defense lines. Well, this isn't going to give 2 shits about your Aegis defense line because it's just going to burn straight through through it because it's a flame weapon.
Well, also as well, being a torrent weapon, you can also, if you're behind cover, for instance, if you're behind line of sight blocking terrain, you can just pop the template over it. And then you can also fire the Aethon missile battery as barrage as well, and twin link.
Yes.
So you actually haven't got to draw any line of sight to make this quite effective. And then the last option is the melter lance, which is quite interesting for a melter weapon. Why is it so interesting for a melter weapon?
When people read this, they were like, no, something's gone wrong here, But actually, if you read the description, it says the barrel of the melter lance features a number of focusing rings. These auto adjust as the target is acquired, allowing the weapon to retain its potency over a greater distance before dissipating. And if you have a look at the melter lance, it is heavy 1 armor bane range, not armor bane melter. So that means that for the full 18 inches that this weapon can go, if it is hitting armor, it will get its 2d6 for armor pen, or it will re-roll against things like dreadnoughts. Okay, or alternatively against other Aethon
Sentinels. Yeah, exactly.
So
which is really cool.
Yeah, so actually, and when you say 7 plus the 18 inches, actually that is quite a long range for any kind of melter weapon. Of course, it's not twin linked. That's a bit of a ball ache here. I think
Mhm.
that, it'd be amazing if it was twin linked. So it is hitting on 4. So in a squad of 3, one and a half of them will hit.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a little bit disappointing, but going back to the heavy incinerator, I could really see a heavy incinerator and the missile battery working it together. And if you just want to have a little bit of fun, the melter lance, just shove it on there and see what destruction you can cause. I think would be pretty cool as well.
I agree with you. And then the last option, which you might want to feature alongside your melter lance, is swapping out the anti-infantry um, missile battery for 400 killer missiles for 20 points. But it
Right.
is then start getting a little bit expensive.
Yeah, I 3 hunter killer missiles would be quite good. Strength 8, AP3, they're one use. You wouldn't be able to use them.
400 killer missiles, not
Oh,
three.
sorry. The one use, so 4 of them, sorry. But I think the missile battery, you'd probably get more use from the missile battery, I think.
I kind of agree with you. I think the only obviously thing is that yes, you can fire all the weapons, but you can't fire them at different targets. And
Yeah,
the fact of the matter is, you're probably unlikely to have a target that is going to benefit from. There's going to be a good target priority for both the melter lance and the missile battery. So that's why I might consider the 400 killers. But jury is out. We will wait to see. But I personally, if it were me, I'd be tempted to go incinerator and the missile battery.
yeah,
Looking at 85 points, I don't think that's a particularly crazy investment for what it could potentially do. And then,
no,
but again, like it's going to be contextual to who you're facing.
yeah,
Like if you think you're going to be facing a lot of humans, or potentially as well, like Mechanicum as well, like you might be seeing a lot of thralls and things like that. So I think
yeah.
I
I
think that's a
think,
nice way of playing it.
yeah, I think the other thing is that you will probably have quite a lot of Vanquisher cannons in your
Yeah,
list.
to do your heavy lifting
To
anti-tank wise.
Exactly. So I think that makes the melter lance less necessary. If you think about the Vanquisher, it's brutal 2, it's strength 9, it's AP2, isn't it, as
Yes,
well, I
Sunder.
think.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that I really think your anti-tank's going to come from places like that. So yeah, as John says, stick to the heavy incinerator, stick with the Aethon missile battery, and go hunting dudes. Like go hunt
Yeah.
those troop choices and just try and blast them away as much as you can and melt them as much as you can.
Yeah, I think it's great because I think that what it kind of does is the missile battery and the incinerator, they kind of negate the real downside with the solar auxiliary list, which is the ballistic skill. So, both of these
Exactly.
things are going to be pretty much, well, obviously the incinerator is going to be guaranteed to hit, and the Aethon is going to be, there or thereabouts.
100%.
So, and again, the fact of the matter is, you lay a flamer template that's wounding and marines on twos across a unit of tactical marines or spoilers, like it's gonna do stuff. Like
Yeah.
it should not be sniffed at. You could easily be taking off between the two weapons 3 or 4 marines a turn. If you
Yeah.
got 3 of them together, you could be deleting a tactical squad with
Yeah.
relative certainty. So,
100%. And the solar auxilia, like most people are
oh,
going
they're
to have to
fucked.
keep them close together because of the close quarters rule and the
Yeah.
tertiaries rule and all the rules that we've gone through previously.
Oh yeah.
Like this is you're just going to clean up. Just even with a template, you're absolutely going to clean up. And the missile battery, it's a large blast as well. Like, yeah, these are just. I think that normal solar auxiliary dudes are just going to be destroyed
think
from
I
this.
think when we talk about the context of human on human, like if you're going to be playing into either, like we are going to see more and more like human on human action coming, either through dedicated events or just metas adjusting. People are going to get excited about this. People are going to dig out their old kits, add new stuff in. I think if you know that you're going to be playing a lot of human on human combat, man oh man, I think 3 of these is an auto include, or
Yeah.
at least a pair of them, because they're just going to do work. I think actually 3 of them is probably overkill because I think you're going to be obliterating like
Oh, units, right?
entire. You're going to
Yeah.
be you obliterate entire units. I think
Yeah.
I think 3 of these against other humans feels to me like 10 siege tyrants against
Yeah. Just
regular
normal
Astartes.
Marines.
It's
Yeah.
just too
Yeah.
many because you just
Yeah.
don't need all those shots.
Yeah. Interesting.
Um,
Cool. Cool. Cool.
so cool. So you were very keen to talk about
Yeah.
how they fit into the army. So why don't you kind of give us your muse?
So we did an in-depth kind of a three-part series on the Solar Auxilia recently. But I
Over on the Patreon, that is, by the way, not
over on the
on
Patreon,
the main
yes.
feed.
But I did want to draw out just a couple of elements. So first of all, the reborn cohort. So these cannot be pinned because they are cavalry. However, if you, let's say you have three in a unit and you lose one of those models, not the
Hmm.
wings, if you lose one of those models, you're going to be forced to take a morale check, and that morale check is going to be on a leadership 8. Okay, it's not got a Vox interlink, it's not got anything that can hook it up to anybody else, and you can't buy a Vox interlink either to be able to use the leadership of your warlord, of your legate marshal. Okay. So I think I actually foresee that being an issue, and in some ways, it's actually better to have two in a unit if you consider morale than have three in a unit, because the last thing you want is two disappearing because you've lost one, whereas you can probably afford to have one kind of failing its round. So it's bear in mind it is leadership 8, which is better than lots of the solar, but it's harder to be off. Um, and then the other thing I want to draw upon is with the reborn cohort. So we might look at it and go, oh, okay, well, I can just bump up their leadership by 1 and give it the stubborn special rule. But unfortunately, that only applies to the infantry in that detachment. So I think that there is a discussion to be had around the leadership of these, because the moment one goes, I think there is a chance that you could lose it. So I think it's something just to um uh to bear in mind. And also with the reborn cohorts, I would have thought so. Unit attachment uses the code may reroll all failed to hit rolls of 1. Um, is that just infantry or is that everybody? Any kind of
No,
making sure? A unit from attachment using. Oh, that's interesting. So actually, Saberlight with the Melter Lance, if you did have reborn cohorts, you would be re-rolling a 1 to hit, which
yeah.
is not too shabby. It's
The
good.
other thing with the reborn cohorts is you can only include a single armored or artillery tertio. So you might well end up having that spare slot in the heavy support slot that these guys can fit in.
Yeah.
Now, where they fit in a little bit more easily is into the siege pattern cohorts doctrine.
Yes. So this is the one I think where you can leverage the power of the Aethon Sentinel best, because here you are not competing with as many valuable things in the heavy. So we'll just quickly read through it and then I'll kind of explain my rationale. So, attachment using this cohort doctrine may select auxiliary artillery tertios and solar auxiliary armored batteries as both elites and heavy support choices. So, if you can move those artillery units into the elites, it will free up that heavy to be able to make it, more viable for you to be able to take one of these. Because as we discussed last time, those rapier batteries are actually really useful, and you can take up to 9 rapier batteries in one slot, which is such a shame that you can't take like 9 of these in one slot in the way
Yep.
that you can with the rapier batteries. But I think that if you were to take siege passing cohort, I think it just makes it more viable if you're competing for heavier support slots, I suppose is my point. And then let's just have a look at the next one, because I think this is interesting. So when a model with this attachment using this cohort doctrine makes a shooting attack with any weapon with a barrage, so that's relevant for us. And or blast special rules, the controller player may choose to re-roll the scatter dice. We can already do that because it's twin linked, but not any d6 roll to determine the distance of any scatter. So actually, that doesn't affect it at all with the Aethon
No.
because it already comes with that
Yeah, it's mainly just freeing up those slots.
slots. Yeah,
Because actually, unlike the Astartes list, the elite slot isn't really particularly heavily contested
no,
in the NSA, but like the heavy supports
yeah,
are just
yeah,
so
so much so.
congested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, couple of things just to consider on that one. I think though, if I was looking to take a squad of 3 of these along with some rapiers, I'd be looking at siege baton cohorts.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. I think I was already looking at siege pattern cohorts just because even from the first time around, and I think I do want some of these. Like I think I really do. I want Flamer Blast. And the only way you're going to be able to cram them in, I think, is by removing the need to kind of sit on those heavy slots.
and I assume just to
Um,
just to go back to reborn cohorts. So
yeah.
just a final thing to say about the reborn cohorts.
Yes.
Because I had looked at this as an option, hadn't I? And
Yeah.
now looking through it, I'm just a bit like, oh, it wouldn't be so good for the Sentinels. But your initiative is basically one for the purposes of running
And
and sweeping
reacting.
advances and reacting. And because you're heavy, you'd be -1. So I think you wouldn't be able to do any movement reactions with the Aethon in reborn cohort. So definitely something to consider here. Mm.
So you touched on it a short while ago, and that is the subject of balance. Now,
Yeah,
not internal balance within the book, but probably external balance
yeah.
across some of the other lists. And you selected a couple of instances where we wanted to kind of compare, see if we're looking at apples and apples, or are we comparing apples and oranges?
Yeah, yeah. This is, I mean, we've gone through these before in our tacticas as well. We've done kind of like deep dives. I guess the
On both
obvious
these
one,
units, yeah.
I guess the obvious one would be the javelin, right? Because I kind of feel in some ways it fills the same sort of role, but also not. Like the Aethon is kind of this weird breed between a javelin and a contemptor. It's kind of a bit of both. It's
Mm.
slow. But it is cavalry, for example. It's got, 5 wounds and it's toughness 6, but it's got a 2-up save like a contemptor would have. So it's kind of like a weird mishmash. I think that point for point, the javelin is one of the best units in the game.
Yeah, I think when we did a few months ago, we did like a tier list kind of episode with Tim from the Isle of Horus podcast, and we decided, I think, that the javelin was the best unit in the game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How's
And
has
yeah,
your viewpoint changed in those last
it's
six
just
months?
only
Because
been
it's not mine.
further
Further
confirmed, I think,
reinforced
with it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with everything that I've seen, and it. It's interesting that the Aethon has no special rules, and then just looking at the number of special rules from the javelin, it's absolutely nuts. But it doesn't. The javelin has a 3-up save. It's 20 points more expensive than the base Aethon.
and it's got one
Um,
less wound.
and it's gone one less wound as well. But the javelin is of course hitting on 3s and not 4s. John's talked about how we can mitigate that by just choosing the twin link blast and using the flamer, so that's not too much of an issue. But it's for me where it's difficult, I think, and where the Aethon doesn't quite compete with the Legion list, when we make this comparison, is when you look at the upgrades. I mean, 2 Lascannon, 5 points, 2 Volkite Colferns, 5 points. It
A
was
multi-motor is 10 points.
exactly like, and I think that this goes back to what we were saying before, which is that it's easy to slap on the new fancy melter because it's new and fancy,
Mm-hmm.
but actually the flamer
You need to
and
resist, guys. You need to resist. You need to think
yeah,
about this tactically.
yeah, because I just think point for point, you're not gonna out compete the legions in this kind of upgrade heavy weapons game because the legions can just do it better. So lean into the weapons, the
Lean
unique
into what it's
weapons.
good at. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
100%.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
Lean into what it's good at. And then the other comparison is the Castellax. So the Castellax is obviously 95 points, so it's 25 points
it's
more
a really interesting
expensive.
comparison. I like this one. I think this was a good one to add. So,
And it's really similar in kind of its stats line. So it's movement 7, for example. It's got the Aethon has a better save. It's
and more wounds, an extra
and
wound as well.
and more wins as well. But it's doesn't have an invulnerable save, for example. If we have a look at the upgrades, the multi-melter and the dark fire cannon, both of those are 20 points. So we're getting more towards the kind of what the equivalent will be for the solo auxiliary list. Now, the thing that a Aethon can't do, or that we know it can't do at this moment in time, which Castellax can do, is use things like cyberthurgy, right? So it can have
Mm-hmm.
additional rules, it can react in certain circumstances, it can double tap in certain circumstances, and the Aethon, it doesn't appear like from the rules that we've seen, it's got anything
No,
like that.
the thing obviously to bear in mind with the Castellax as well is they can't naturally react, which may or may not be a factor. But also, you've got to invest points in Magos or a Magos Dominus or an
Yeah,
Archmagos in order to kind of actually get them to that point. I would say if you had the Castellax is okay in combat, whereas the Aethon is not great. But at the
yeah,
same time, I think they feel to me quite balanced.
yeah,
And you can obviously
yeah.
tell these were the two later books.
Yeah, yeah. Against the Castellax, I think it feels super balanced. Against the
Yeah,
Javelin, though, the weapons do
mental
not
in it.
feel balanced at all. Like the speed you've got, you know,
It can
the
hit and
fact
run.
that
It can deep strike. It can
yeah,
outflank. Like
yeah, yeah,
it's
it
just so
doesn't
good.
surprise. I suspect that this is because this book was written so long ago, and
Hmm.
then the mech one was written later on. And I suspect that's the reason why. So yeah, again, but I think this is just something that we came back to time and time again, which is that you're always looking, and it always feels like you're just going to slightly struggle against Space Marine armies. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then you came up with a bold prediction, Rob.
yeah. So we have seen the PDF versions of these rules, and it feels like Solar is going to be part of the new beta. Solar is going to be a big part of the beta Garment book. So this is my prediction. The upcoming Beta Gamma book will allow you to fill these in additional slots or in other slots like elites. I think that they'll either enhance something like the siege pattern cohort, and add to it so it will be replaced, or there will be a Sentinel cohort doctrine, kind of like similar to a
Mm.
Rite of War, if you're not too sure about what that is. That will allow these to go into another slot. 3 in one slot feels like it's not quite
Feel like,
enough.
yeah, like a
Yeah,
mechanized force where three of these can be taken as like non-compulsory troops.
yeah,
That feels
something
cool.
along those lines. Yeah, I think that and bear in mind we still got two other Sentinels to drop. We got the light version and we
Yeah.
got the Velatara Sentinel that's coming.
Yeah.
So I think that I this is my prediction that, and I've not seen the book and I've not spoken to anybody about the book at all. I just think that something will come for these Sentinels to give them an extra boost, and then when that book drops and that doesn't happen, you can all come back to this video and tell me that I was wrong. But that's my
Yeah.
prediction.
Absolutely. Yeah. Leave a really horrible comment below. Share it with all your friends and tell them just what a ridiculous arsehole Rob's been. So, do we want to summarize? Do you want to just summarize what we've been chatting about, or do we want to discuss about the Patreon first?
Well, yeah, let's summarize. So I basically think if you the takeaway on this for me and listening, us articulating our thoughts on it, I think the takeaway for me is arm it with the Aethon blast and the flamer and get it to hunt guys.
Yeah, I think so.
Don't worry about hunting vehicles. I know it's so tempting with that melter, but you'll only be disappointed. Like every time you roll a turn to hit for a vehicle,
Yeah.
you'll only make one and a half of those shots. Like,
Now, I'm
yeah,
gonna yeah. If you've ever been an Astartes player that has played in the second edition of the game with a Sakaran Venator,
yeah,
you will know how it feels.
yeah,
But also, it's less likely to do anything than the Sakaran Venator.
exactly,
It's
exactly.
20% or a third less likely to do anything than the Sakaran Venator. So
Yeah,
I totally agree. I think even if you are playing against Astartes, I still think that's the way to field them. I think they represent actually quite a significant threat. And you've also then got they're quite hard to be countered with. Yes, I mean the weight
yeah,
of small arms fire, but if you're there soaking up a lot of small arms fire, that small arms fire can be pretty devastating towards your line infantry in the solar list.
yeah,
So actually, I think these guys could be not necessarily a distraction kind effects, but you've got to you'll make an Astartes player really think hard about how they're going to deal with them.
yeah. They've got to dedicate some
Mm,
serious firepower to take
yeah,
these on from the
or
two
tie them
up
up in
save
combat, or
and
just
the
try and
heavy.
tar pit them in
Yeah.
combat.
Yeah, I think that these will. I mean, they're quite tough, right? So I think even a tax squad going against them is going to struggle to get sixes on the wound to
Oh
be able
yeah,
to
yeah. And as with the
get rid of
strip
them.
save,
Yeah,
it's more a case of just like I said, just tying them up as
yeah,
opposed to just actually bringing them down.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that may be, but then again, it means that then that tax squad isn't then scoring. It
Hmm,
means that
hmm.
it's also not then, firing bolt rounds into your toughness three guys. I, I
100%.
think, I think this is really cool. I think I've completely come around on the miniature itself, and I'm really, yeah. I think if I end up pursuing this solar project that I've got in my mind, and I think these will feature for sure.
100%.
So yeah, well, so we, like I said, we put this one out as a bit of a bonus. Rob and I got a bit excited about this early in the week, and Rob was like, oh, "I think we should do an extra Tactica and release it on the main feed." We did one with the Deredeo when that was released in the Astartes box set, so this felt like an interesting way to do it. So, if you would like some more of the sort of tactical in-depth shows, as I said, Rob and I have just finished a kind of more in-depth 3-part one on the solo list. It's about 2.5 hours worth of additional content on the Solo Auxilia over on the
Yeah,
Patreon.
maybe even 3.5 actually. I
Yeah,
think
it
it's
was
they're
pretty.
both
I
they're
think
all quite
one of
long.
them we got very carried away on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've also got, about 35, nearly 40 other shows on there as well. So there's about 50 hours worth of additional content over there. If you would like to, you can head over to patreon.com/heresyhammer. You can subscribe for just £3 or $4 or whatever your local currency is a month. And that would get you all of the additional shows we've ever recorded, plus the 2 extra we do every month going forwards. It also gives you access to all of our event materials. So we've got an event coming up this month now, my event in 2 weeks' time. We've got the Solar War event in May.
Yep, mate. Yep.
And then today, the 1st of March, we'll also be releasing tickets for the Royal Rumble, which is the
In 15
Primark.
minutes. In 15 minutes, in fact.
Sorry, 15 minutes. Yeah, we've got lots of time.
Yeah.
So being a patron gives you early access to those tickets as well. We still can't guarantee you'll get one because all the events do sell out pretty quick, but fastest finger first.
Yep.
We also have all of our event packs for you to download and keep, and you get access to the Heresy Hammer Lodge over on Facebook, which is a private Facebook group for all our patrons. We've got 400 patron members now, so it's pretty popular stuff going on there all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Yep.
If you've got more money to spend, then you can subscribe for £5 a month, which also gives you the potential every 3 times a year we do a prize draw. You can either win a console of your choice painted by one of us, myself, Rob, or Lee.
I just finished today actually an Imperial Fists Castellan model made from Fafnir Ran and a few other bits and pieces ready for Anthony to be sent to him this weekend. Literally
Anthony,
just finished it today.
Lucky boy.
He didn't want the £100 voucher. He wanted me to paint a model for him. I was like, wow,
what a twat.
Very inconvenient. Thanks very much, Anthony. But we did it for you, and it matches. We did it. We even went through the scheme that he's got and the basing scheme he got just to match everything up front.
That's why you're a full-time painter. And this is also why I'm a full-time salesman. But if you thought that we weren't worthy of your painting, if you're a better painter than us, you can also choose to take a £100 or equivalent in your local currency voucher for whichever hobby shop you like, Forge World, GW included. And if you've got more money than sense, I don't mean that actually, because it's actually our most popular tier, but you can join our Praetor tier.
It is very, very popular.
It is our most popular tier for £13 a month. So you receive everything else. You get access to the prize draw, but we also, every 6 months, we will send you a very, very cool reward. Now,
shall I tell you something? So I did the video letting people know what would be in the next cycle. I kind of let them know it would be merch,
it's merch. The merch is cool. The merch is coming.
People went wild for the merch.
I know. I was so surprised.
They were absolutely loving it for the merch. Yeah.
So we've been for the last 2 cycles, so for the last 12 months, we've been offering a very, very cool miniature kit, which is sculpted for us by Wilf from Divergent Realm, and then we 3D print the entire kit and ship it out to you free of charge. So you get a physical kit. You haven't got to find someone to go and print it for you, and it's printed in the best quality resin on the best quality printers by our printing partner. That kit currently is the heavy armored flag wearer.
So basically, bearer. Yeah.
So it doubles. Like I said, it's a guy in heavy armor carrying a series of huge flags. In fact, you actually get 2 of them in the kit.
You do. Yeah.
So if you subscribe to that today on the 1st of March, you will receive that in 6 months' time. But the next round, we have got some really cool merchandise coming. So we've got samples on their way to us now. We should be able to show them off in the next kind of couple of weeks. And we're going to do some merch. And I could not believe how buzzing people were for the merch.
Yeah.
We will also have that available for sale as well. But we're going to do something special for the patrons that's a bit different to everything else. So keep your eyes peeled to our socials, which are... you can follow us on Instagram at Heresy Hammer Show, or you can follow myself at D6_miniatures and Rob at Meadows Miniatures. And please tag your miniatures on Instagram with hashtag Heresy Hammer. We will pick our favorites and show them on the main show. In fact, we won't pick our favorites because they are all our favorites, and we have like 11,000 now to go through.
So many.
We feature about 10 per show. So Obviously, if you've enjoyed this video, thank you so much for watching. Please give it a thumbs up. Give us a subscribe. Yes, we're pitching for the Patreon, but subscribing costs literally no money. And as a man with no money, I can very much attest to it's always nice to give for free. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think about the Aethon Sentinel, and maybe let us know what you might want us to cover in the upcoming Tactica shows. And don't forget to share it with your friends, girlfriends, wives, husbands, they and theirs, anyone who you feel might be interested. And send any correspondence over to us, heresyhammer30k@gmail.com. I'm still planning on doing a correspondence bonus special on the Patreon over the next sort of few weeks as well, when time allows. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And in the meantime, yeah, love and heresy. You can say bye now.
Oh, bye-bye now.
Goodbye now.
Take care, guys. See you soon.
Bye-bye.